I liked it. That one I liked but didn't love. I thought there were, some real good visuals, but it was pretty ponderous and,
So you had low expectations coming into this one.
I did. I like Villeneuve. I've liked a lot of films he's done. I mean, for instance, and I was thinking about this because I did rewatch Dune Part One the other night, and there's this interesting scene where Paul is having these flashbacks or flash forwards, I guess, and he imagines himself talking with Jameis. And Jameis is the Fremen whom he kills, and it's a rite of passage. Fremen challenges him, and Paul defeats him. And he has this flashback. It's not a flashback. It's like a possible future or some sort of lesson. And Jameis says, like, let me show you the ways of the desert. And so it's ironic because Jameis will show him the ways of the desert. And, in the desert, 2 men enter, 1 man leave, so to speak. And then he has a flash forward of himself dying, like Jameis killing him. But that also is kind of ironic in the sense of, Paul Atreides does die and he becomes Muad'Dib. So it's a ironic vision. So all of that is very heady and evocative and intelligent. I mean, nuanced. I like that. But then you have to remember, Dune's an adventure story, and when they had the fight, it was like this just basic, fast moving, ultimate fighting or whatever, which is fine. But Paul and Jessica know the weirding way, and this is an integral part of how they're successful. So I was just kind of like, did you not want to even try to come up with a way of visualizing the weirding way? I mean, David Lynch visualized the weirding way by having it be like words and sound, which is actually kind of cool. My name is a killing word, and they're going like, and then they'll send a sound wave that will destroy mountains. I mean, it was a bold choice, but an interesting way of visualizing a difficult concept. And I felt like they just punted on it. And so I don't know, I was just left disappointed. I didn't think his battle with Jameis was that spectacular or exciting or dangerous seeming. It just seemed like he just kind of defeated him. So I was thinking Villeneuve is great in some areas. He's really lacking in others. But I just think he had more confidence in the second one. And they never handled the weirding way issue. It's just people just dive around and do gymnastics. But so that is lacking in my opinion. But he did so much else that was just completely amazing and interesting visuals and just mesmerizing. I mean, I didn't feel like I was there for 3 hours. I was totally into the film. I didn't want it to end. I never felt like it was lagging. So I think he's just an amazing director. And some of the other things how they dealt with Chani. I mean, I guess you could say that the way they dealt with Chani was a little bit feminist or woke or something like that. I guess you could say that, but it wasn't. It was good. They did change a little bit of the relationship between Chani and Paul, particularly at the end of the film. But they did it in a way that made sense, and it was almost better or something.
I was so upset
I don't
at
know.
the end. I was so upset.
You were upset?
Whoa. We gotta be careful here.
Yeah, let's the
spoilers is what I mean.
Vague, keep it vague.
We don't want to spoil it.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Well, I mean, Oh, so you didn't respond to the way that they dealt. You thought that was not true to Chani's
No,
character.
it was amazing. I think that's it. Like it was actually viscerally like it's provocative.
Oh, you were upset because it was so kind of powerful.
Yeah, yeah, it was so upsetting because it was
Okay.
such a, oh my God, I don't want to spoil it anyway for anyone who hasn't watched it.
Yeah.
But those weren't, they were spice-induced
Paul
premonitions, by
has
the way. They weren't like
higher duties.
yeah, but I don't know. It was like a trip. Each time he's supposed to go deeper and deeper into the premonitions based on spice consumption, but I don't know if they linked it properly.
That's yeah. I guess so. I think he does have some amazing visuals. Like even that visual of Chani before Paul met Chani, and she's like standing in front of a sunset or something, and she has the blue eyes, and her hair is like coming down. Like he's very good at just making a painting or like a poster or book cover or something. And so I thought that was great. I think he really succeeded at that. But did he not have, I don't know, getting deeper into a kind of like deeper vision? Yeah, I mean, I guess so.
I think he's also
I
supposed to have
liked that
morphed
image
like
of
a lot more. The transition into becoming Freeman isn't as pronounced. Like he's supposed to have almost shown his, like his the Paulness about him. You know what I mean? He's supposed to have morphed because I don't know how they're going to reconcile that for the third phase. For the third part. You know what I mean?
he became a Fremen and he's no longer Paul, is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
you know what happens in the third part, basically. Like I don't know how they're
Yeah.
gonna.
Well, he really
Yeah,
morphs.
so I don't know how
Yes.
they're gonna do that because his transformation is supposed to have been halfway complete, like with the second one. I don't know how convincing it was because he's still very much Paul, not more deep.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
But it was still brilliant. I thought it was still amazing, though. Like amazing.
Yeah, I'm hyped to see it. I don't have a card to get to a freaking movie theater.
Wow. What happened to your car?
Well, I'm just at a college that I walk places.
Let's go.
Well, you can't walk to a movie theater?
They're all far away.
Surely there's one
No,
near.
there's not any close enough.
Oh, it's worth Ubering it, definitely, if you can.
I thought about it. But the closest one's like a $20 Uber each way. So I'm depressed.
Richard, did you like Enemy?
Yeah, I haven't seen that in a little while, but I remember I got into Villeneuve a while ago. I think Prisoners is a great film. Enemy is a great film. Arrival is, I don't know. Maybe I should rewatch that. I thought it was maybe good but not great. Sicario is an amazing. I mean, he's done like a ton of films that are just fantastic.
You like his Blade Runner?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, a little bit ponderous, and he kind of some problems there. I think the symbolism, at least in Blade Runner, is pretty interesting. I haven't seen that in a few years, so
do you prefer the original?
I would have to revisit. Yeah.
Okay. You're not going to go that contrarian for 2049.
I remember I did even some podcasts, like I rewatched Blade Runner 2049. I would just have to rewatch these things. I haven't seen it in a little while.
Okay. I get kind of bored with the first one. I know that's just me, but
yeah, Carolina, I sent you a co-host request.
How you doing, Monolith? Are you back from Tennessee yet?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
Yeah, I'm back in Florida.
Are you still recovering from that jet lag, Monolith?
Jet lag?
Yeah, you're in the central time zone.
You were in my time zone. Let's go.
I'm just kidding. Richard, what are your thoughts on Super Tuesday, the washout for Trump? As expected, you think Haley's going to call it a day?
She didn't speak?
Well, I mean,
It was weird.
I I think she almost has to. But as I said before, I mean, I made a prediction that is looking quite wrong, but I'm not. You win some, you lose some. She really was running for vice president, and she might actually. I mean, the fact that she is polling so well against Joe Biden, that it might be kind of a good choice for her to be vice president if your goal is winning. Um, but that would have made sense if she had dropped out earlier. I mean, it seemed like she created bad blood all around by remaining in. And if you remain in when it's just you versus Trump and you're not leaving, then you almost have to say, like, I'm in this to prevent Trump from being president. I mean, otherwise it makes little sense. And so I don't know what to say. I don't know what she's up to. I mean, I think it's kind of fun to
It
speculate.
is like
Of
nobody can figure out what she's doing. Like
Doesn't
she
it show
didn't
that
even
she's
come
got
out to
like
speak
nerve?
today.
Doesn't it show she's got like, kind of nerve that she would um go like, that she doesn't back down kind of thing, that she wants to go all the way.
Well, I mean, what I mean by it's fun to speculate, it's kind of like, does she want to get some delegates? And she now has some. Didn't she win Vermont or something,
Yeah,
or
she did.
some crazy thing like that? So if they're going to remove Trump at some point, then she could at least plausibly claim, look, I have some sort of Democratic mandate. And others couldn't. Others, it would be bringing someone with no delegates, bringing someone who didn't even run, out of the woodwork. Whereas she could say, like, I genuinely finished second, and there should be some sort of contentious RNC. And I mean, much like Ted Cruz did, but I think this time it will be on steroids. I mean, he is either going to be in a trial or facing conviction or convicted, even potentially. I don't know. So, yeah. That just is the only thing that makes sense, because otherwise, like, what are you really running on?
But
Like, what are
don't
you?
you guys always do that? Don't
Why?
you like in your primaries? Don't they go kind of really head to head and they don't pull punches? And then it's like right at the end, someone blinks first, and then they concede, and then they incorporate the other into. From what I can gather, they incorporate the other into like as a vice president. I'm just thinking of like Hillary and Obama and that
Yes,
kind of thing. It's like a bull run.
yes, but I think this is just too contentious at this point, because the Republican Party wants her out, because it's just using, you're using money and soliciting donations or something that really doesn't matter. So I don't know. I might be totally wrong. Maybe my prediction will turn out to be true after all. That she just drops out, and then Trump brings her in, and all the MAGA people get mad. But Trump does get closer to being reelected. So I don't know what to say, but that is how it usually works. This just seems weird, because don't you feel this like pointlessness? I mean, I forgot today was Super Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean,
I remember
Same.
even when I was a kid, I like paid attention to this stuff.
last year with Kamala, or not last year, last election with Kamala Harris, she literally called Joe Biden like a racist and all this kind of stuff. And obviously, it was way more short-lived. It's not the same degree, but it definitely is not out of the question that Nikki Haley would be VP.
And I told
Yeah.
you guys she's
Well,
pushing
she
hard.
actually said, I don't think you're a racist, Joe. This afternoon I was trying to do a Kamala.
Let's go.
She puts extra syllables. That's what she's like. She's drunk and tired. We need a ceasefire. Like she like adds a deal.
I kind of like it.
She
She does the
adds
southern drawl thing,
syllables. She
which it's
slurs.
kind of endearing, the southern drawl.
Southern
Yeah.
drawl.
Yeah.
No, that's not a draw.
It sounds like it to a
Wait,
foreigner.
what?
So
What?
It's
true.
like vocal
I
So
swear.
fry.
true.
Yeah, that's not Southern.
She does this thing. She goes, ain't, I can't do it. She goes, I can't do it. She goes, ain't that
Well,
something?
she's
You know?
so
That's a black thing.
she is like
Ah,
it's like resting bitch face, I guess, but it's like resting disappointment face. She's like always disappointed. She's like, I did want to address Joe Biden. Like, he is the most energetic man I have ever known.
Well, that's
Don't you think
actually
I'm kind of
that
getting
was
it?
pretty
Like,
good, actually.
it's weird. She's always like perturbed and disappointed in you. Like, you would, like, if you ever spent a night with her, she'd be like, I am so upset that you did not wear a condom. Sorry, I'm being
No, fair
rude.
enough. No, fair
I
enough.
can't
Fair
believe
enough.
your mind
No,
went
no,
there.
it's appropriate.
That's the funniest thing I've ever had. But
It's
I did
appropriate.
tell you guys though that she's still hitting up. She was hitting up a friend of mine to do a fundraiser for her like a few weeks ago. Like she's still very much pedal to the metal or whatever you guys call it. Like she's really still hitting people up for a lot of cash. The people who
Well,
have the
yeah,
money
they
for
got
it.
an
Well,
election to win.
here's my theory on, well, Nikki Haley, she's like, people in the media are saying that I should drop out, but I'm not listening to the elitist liberals. She does the full on, like, I am teaching third grade social studies, like that voice. But this is my kind of pet theory that I dropped. So Kamala, to her credit, came out in favor of a 6-week ceasefire. So it's a kind of half-assed ceasefire in Gaza, but it's something, and that is more than Joe. And she is ambitious, if not anything. So does she kind of like, I don't know, is she trying to tap into the left wing of the Democratic Party and maybe setting herself up to replace him
I
by becoming like actually popular?
Yeah,
There's
they
like
don't
a
like each
cynical view
other.
of her. There was one cynical view in that 6 weeks is enough time for the primaries largely to be over, and by that time, like the ceasefire would have bought them like some grace in terms of all of the the votes that are kind of, what do you call it? It's not uncounted. What do you guys call it?
Yeah,
What are they called?
undecided or
Yeah,
something.
that
Yeah, and the don't know, the undecided, and those two votes basically, it's enough time to buy them some grace if it is instituted. And then they just did a UNSC for the first time resolution calling for a ceasefire, immediate ceasefire. Like obviously they've vetoed it again and again and again, and now they've actually put it forward. But she's not taken. Kamala's like really disregarded or looked at with disdain by the heavyweights in the Dems, isn't she? Like she's not taken seriously.
well, I think she's just not popular. I mean, I think she was taken seriously. I mean, she was a U.S. senator, and she was put into the vice president, a president spot. I mean, I think she's just not popular because she's just unappealing. I mean, you've got to be president, you've got to run for president. Like, you can't not be charismatic, basically. And I just find her like, she seems to be just very unlikable. She's a real turnoff, and I think she might appeal to women like her who make up the K Hive or something. They kind of see themselves in her. But she's just not, she's neither warm nor fun nor like insightful nor anything. She's just like disappointed with us all, seems to be. It's just not attractive. It's just really not. Like, I think Hillary is actually like more
Yeah,
attractive than Kamala Harris, because Hillary's smart. I mean, like, she is.
I was just
And
thinking.
Kamala is like not that smart. She's just kind of like this, she's like drunk
Yeah, I was just thinking of this
or
like
something.
interview with Pelosi. I pinned it in the thing, and Pelosi, like her disdain, she's dripping disdain. She's like asked about what Kamala's up to, and she's like, well, she doesn't really do much, and then she just like she just puts it out there. It's like the biggest burn, you know. If you actually, I don't know, get the time to watch the YouTube, it's fine. Like I've pinned it. It's weird. It's kind of an indictment. Like she's nothing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
Hillary far more ruthless too.
more, yeah. And Nancy
The body
Pelosi seems
count.
like someone who would be fun to talk to. I'll need to watch this. People say to me, why isn't she doing this or that? I said, because she's the vice president. Well, she is demeaning her there, but in fairness to Nancy Pelosi, the vice president really has like very few duties.
Yeah, she must be like a political mastermind behind the scenes, though, because she's literally vice president despite nobody publicly liking her, it seems like. Like, she must have like the sharpest elbows possible. I don't know. She seems to know how to play the game or something.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's just weird.
Yeah.
I can't imagine her as president. I just think that would be just a total disaster. I mean, you've got to do a lot of things as president. Like, you've got to represent the nation. You've got to comfort the nation and when things are going hard. You've got to articulate a policy. And I don't know. I think her in the White House, that would just be a total disaster. Like, just in terms of PR. I mean, I'm not even opining on like whether she's a good president or not, because that's most of the job is PR, basically.
What are you eating, Richard?
I'm steaming some dumplings.
Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah, this is how sophisticated I am.
Well, the Trader Joe's ones are really nice.
We're back.
Mm-hmm.
Ace is here.
Yeah,
You guys aren't going to shout again, are you?
Well, let's see.
We'll see.
Last night was wild.
I heard it for a second. I was like, dude, it was like, yeah, it was really...
People were trying to get front row tickets. I mean,
I just let him cook. He's like, I'm not joining in between that. Nope.
I mean, people wanted the bootleg, uncut.
What happened?
The bootleg coffee. No,
Kaiser's
I'm
back.
Palmer tonight. Oh, good.
That's what we were talking about.
Although he's on the speaker, but I don't see him in his slot. I don't know what's going on.
He's showing us listening line.
So what is the story coming out of this, or coming out of Super Tuesday, or is there no story?
I think the most important one is the Michigan stuff with Biden and uncontested or whatever.
Uncommitted.
It was basically done. Like, everybody already knew what was going to happen. The only interesting thing is like Biden. People are seeing like a big turnout that he didn't get as many votes because he's unpopular about the Israel stuff. So that's about the only thing to take away from this.
Yeah, that and the Vermont thing, I guess. I really won.
Well, everybody knew she would get Vermont. Like, it's liberal.
Yeah, it's open.
She's not liberal, though. I mean, this is the kind of weird thing about her, is that she is to the right of Donald Trump on like domestic matters.
Like what?
Yeah, I said probably shouldn't have said liberal. I should have said establishment. My bad.
Well, yeah,
it was a bad terminology. I messed it up.
No, I'm not jumping on you. I'm simply using that as like a point. Like, she is more pro-life than Donald Trump.
Barely. She's not pro-national abortion ban.
Barely. Well, I thought she supported like a 6-week abortion.
No.
Or something.
She's
she's actually pretty pro-choice. Actually.
Yeah. Like, functionally, she's as pro-life as Trump in terms of what the presidency would do.
Okay, I'll have to go look into this. But remember, like, an abortion ban is also an abortion allowance. Like, it's just defining what it is.
DeSantis had the strongest views on it.
Right, that might be true. I mean, he did a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. I mean, allowing the states to decide is basically going to have abortion banned in Oklahoma and places like that.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's like what the state is or the federal, like whichever one's first, essentially. Like, you can't have it later. Like, if it was a 20-week federal abortion ban, you could still have 6-week abortion bans.
Well, okay, but I mean, I'm not sure that policy makes sense unless you define it.
Well, okay. My point is
I mean,
that
I guess that like theoretically, I understand what you're saying. I think you might be technically correct. I'm just saying that, like, if you want to have, like, I think you could probably get people on side of basically having Roe v. Wade, just reiterating Roe v. Wade, but making sure that Oklahoma couldn't ban it earlier or something like that. But if you just kind of like, well, we're doing a 21-week ban, but then, but then 10 states can ban it at 2 weeks. I don't know if that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like a national
Well, okay,
issue.
but okay, Nikki Haley's not conservative on abortion. What else is she like conservative on in your opinion?
Well, she's just like a typical Republican. I mean, I don't, pro corporate tax cuts, capitalism, rah rah. I mean, blah blah blah. I mean, she's pretty typical in all those things. I would imagine she's, on the right in the spectrum in terms of gun rights. I mean, she was a South Carolina governor. All I'm saying is that she's not like the thing that people forget about Donald Trump in 2016 is that he was a centrist who didn't talk about gay marriage and abortion at all and was making noises about national health care for like the past 15 years, in fact. And he endorsed national health care in his book, The America We Deserve. I'm sure it was ghostwritten, but presumably he had some sort of hand in it. And remember, Ivanka talked about national family leave at the RNC speech. And I mean, he was like a radical centrist. And all of that went out the window in office. I mean, first he did the Paul Ryan agenda.
Yeah.
And they got rid of Obamacare and all that kind of stuff. And then by 2020, he had become, an evangelical snake handler effectively, or he was treated as such by the religious right. So it's a weird transition that he went to. And I think a lot of people forget that. But I would say that Nikki Haley is pretty like rock ribbed when it comes to all issues. Now, Trump is ambiguous, strategically ambiguous, or just simply ambiguous. But in Trump's heart of hearts, I mean, I think he kind of is like a Paul Tsongas Democrat, I mean, I think that's kind of where he naturally is. Maybe years ago, I mean, he's become, Donald Trump has become more of a monster than a man at this point. I mean, who knows what he actually wants or thinks, but, in his heart of hearts, when he was getting interviewed on Larry King, et cetera, he sounds a lot like a centrist Democrat.
What are the chances of that Rand Paul chap taking McConnell's place? Do you guys think that's like, and is that going to have an impact on anything?
Oh, is that the talk?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Yeah, that's going to be quite impactful.
How do you think it's going to steer things?
He's definitely more austere than some of his colleagues, and I think he maybe a little bit more. I don't know, Richard. What do you think? Like philosophically motivated about his principles, and like won't care as much about what is good for the party on some issues. I mean, it could help. It could also harm too.
Yeah, I mean, he's not been a total ideologue exactly, but I mean, he is an ideologue when he gives a speech, and he is Ron Paul's son. So I mean, that is significant. But he also made peace with Trump and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I just get cynical about this, where I think the Republicans are going to be Ron Paul when it comes to Ukraine. They're going to be Scoop Jackson when it comes to Israel, or Joe Lieberman when it comes to Israel. And they're going to, it's just like they're going to reach like the worst case scenario where they don't sign a border bill because we don't want to fund Ukraine. They don't fund Ukraine, and then they give Israel like another 10 billion to complete the genocide. Just because that's what they would do. the worst possible outcome, at least from my opinion.
The fact that they keep lumping the bills together is crazy to me. I don't know why they don't do it separately.
Well, it's best for the Defense Department to do it all together, put all the orders in. I don't know. There must be some legality. There must be some benefit to doing it all at once.
Well, it's just like the
Otherwise,
compromise
it's just
idea.
easier. It's more expedient that way instead of fighting over
No, the
details.
reason why they're doing it all at once is that Mike Johnson said, and everyone said this, including even Lindsey Graham, that we're not going to even talk about Ukraine until we get a border bill. And then the Democrats did that, and then they rejected everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, the House bill is much smaller for spending abroad. It's $66 billion, and about 80% of it will go to the U.S. military, and the rest will go to Ukraine. And there will be delays in shipments by a couple months, and it's all provisional and all sorts of things. So it's not the weapons they requested either, and people are quite upset apparently about this Mike Johnson business. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're going to break on this, and I don't know. They're pretty far off from what the Senate has in mind.
It's so interesting. Like I was talking to I guess well, okay, former commander a few weeks ago, like like more than a few weeks ago, several weeks ago, about what would happen because he's Republican. And he was like, because, I was like, oh, because we were just gaming out what would happen if he were to come back in. And I guess a lot of the military establishment, because, there were lots of contentious things that happened with Esper and that kind of thing, right? So the hardcore kind of military lot, like, and the COCOM level, they're kind of constitutionalists. So they're kind of worried about that. But I don't know whether or not like having someone like Rand Paul would assuage it, like so you have a counterbalance. I think that's what they're kind of that's what they're thinking of. Does that track with what you guys think or have heard? Hey, Doc.
Could you repeat that?
Basically, okay. So I guess at the COCOM level, like so a former commander. We were just talking because there are lots of Republicans, obviously in the defense space, and like so I was asking him, okay, if they're excited about like Trump coming back in and that kind of thing. But they had this experience with Esper, right? Because Esper kind of resigned and his staff resigned in protest and that kind of thing because they weren't happy about what happened because they're much more conservative in that echelon of the defense sector, like that top echelon. And I think the thinking is like a lot of them are constitutionalists and they're worried, even though they're Republican, about the direction it would go in. So would something like, because I don't know how you guys perceive Rand Paul relative to like Trump, in terms of what that dynamic would be if they were both around at the same time, So I
It's a
don't know. Would it him?
celebration.
So what? So
Does that make sense?
what are you saying exactly? Like well, I mean, they're more conservative in what way? Is this they're worried about not enough funding for the military,
No. So one of the things they're worried
or
about is like because they're constitutionalists essentially. So they kind of
uh-huh.
like the funding wasn't the problem. It was just oversight and just basically things running as they should, like to just let the DoD do what it needs to do. That's the DoD's kind of perspective on it, not to politicize the DoD. So their concern from what I got from one person, but obviously I've spoken to a few of these guys. So is always like to what extent is there a check and balance? Like because they are all Republican in the end. Well, it's very most of them are Republican. So to what extent is there a check and a balance against that kind of politicization? Like, would someone like Rand Paul in government provide that? I don't know because I don't understand enough about it to understand like whether or not he would do that if Trump were to come in, which um. So that's like what because I don't understand enough about how that piece of it would be handled. Does that make sense?
Well, I'll just jump in here. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doc.
Zag, Prodigal.
Hey.
Look,
Hi, Prodigal.
Rand's not going to be the speaker. His number one issue, of course, he's come out against Ukraine funding, but his number one issue is the Fed. in the currency, and no one has an appetite to let him go and audit the Fed, which is the first thing he would do, which is what his dad suggested we'd be done 30 years ago. So as much as I admire him, particularly for his stance on the vaccine, quote unquote vaccines, I don't think he's in the race. And I think you have to answer the question, why is it there's a speaker's race going on right now in advance of the election when the Senate numbers and, who's leading the Senate is going to change. So this, in effect, is electing the new leader of the Senate with the current race to replace McConnell, who's announced his departure early. So they want to have the new leader in place, likely to be a Republican, before the new Senate gets sat in January of 2025.
Yeah,
And it's to
exactly.
keep Rhino control, really. So I don't think the possibility of funding either of these wars is going to go away, because what happens in the Senate, that's really going to be determined by who wins the presidency. If Trump's there, you can count on funding being cut and a lot of pressure being put on both the Israelis and Ukraine to surrender, make peace, or what have you, because the funding is not going to continue. Trump's, I think, made that very clear in a number of speeches, including the one he did very early on CNN, where he responded that he doesn't care who wins, he just wants people to stop dying. Thanks.
Well,
That makes
why don't you
sense.
think that
Well,
Senate
I don't assume any of those
Yeah.
things. I mean, Trump, under the Trump administration, after Obama got out of there, the administration supported lethal aid and to Ukraine for the first time.
Yeah, but
So I don't.
Richard, that was initial. It was limited. It was a completely different context.
It was a
And
deterrent
3
effect.
years later,
It wasn't
funded war.
engaging in war,
So
right?
I'll bet you. I mean, I'll bet you right now that Trump's going to cut the funding to both those wars.
No,
I could
I think there'll be peace before that happens. I
Well,
think with Trump, they have to believe, even if it's a bluff, that he would, curb or put constraints on both nations. That's the difference with Biden. Even if Biden wanted to, he can't make that claim because he's had kitty gloves with Iran and others. Trump, at least we've seen post-election, he doesn't have a high opinion of Bibi at all. And he wants normalcy in trade, and boom. I think he would push for this because he realizes that this is just, it's not good for the West. This is not good for us long term.
what are you talking about?
I'm talking about endlessly funding two foreign conflicts while we're experiencing decay in many of our urban and other centers, and we have a number of
Well,
bubbles that are going to have to be dealt with. That's what I'm talking about. What are you talking about?
well, yeah. I mean, Trump.
Well, even if we
Look,
weren't
Trump
experiencing economic
has
decay, why do it?
Trump has no policy. I mean, it's like I could easily imagine Trump like signing off all of Ukraine to Vladimir Putin. I could also imagine him continuing the current policy. I could also imagine him nuking Moscow. I mean,
there's nothing in your
Which means he's
imagination won't
unpredictable.
raise up to
Which means
bash
they have to
Trump and
take his
MAGA.
threats more serious because he's unpredictable, correct?
Well,
I mean, that's
yeah.
basically,
I mean, you
even
could
Nixon
say.
talked about the madman theory. I think Eisenhower too.
Well,
Okay,
I
so
know,
like, what
but
are we talking about?
but Trump is an actual madman. Like the
You
madman,
really believe that? With Biden having
strategy.
started 2 regional wars and completely funded shit that
He didn't start either of those
really?
wars.
You don't think he could have told? You don't think
Yes,
he could have
really.
said? You don't think
Biden
he
did
could have
not
easily said
start the
Ukraine
Ukraine
will
war
never
nor
join
Gaza.
NATO instead of secretly fucking strengthening them in preparation for breaking the Minsk Accords the whole time? Like, what are we talking about? Like, you have heard Newland, you have heard
Well,
even Merkel has admitted now that there was no intention of ever honoring the Minsk Accords, and they wanted to arm Ukraine up to pursue it. I mean, you did see the video of Graham and McCain in Ukraine. We're going on the like. You do we need to like? You do have a base foundation of this, right?
I don't have a base foundation in whatever like tangential matters that you're obsessed with. I mean,
U.S.
Russia
active
invaded
foreign policy
Ukraine.
in Ukraine that helped push it to the brink of war. I mean, even
Well,
NATO's head came out
you're
and
like
said,
Russia is like, look at what you made me do. Basically, I mean, it's like at
they
the
gave them
end
a
of the
clear
day,
line, and these are
Russia.
the same people who keep on trying to call bluffs that haven't turned out to be bluffs. Or am I just confusing history?
Yeah, we're getting sidetracked here. I mean, it's a very
I don't know. I think
clear
I'm being very
matter that
logically consistent.
Russia.
I think like all my stuff.
You think that NATO had a secret plan to force Russia to invade Ukraine?
NATO had a plan to expand. They knew Russia had a clear red line. They reiterated numerous times. Like, I think NATO was brilliant. I think getting in Albania, getting in the Baltic countries, getting in a lot of the former Warsaw Pact was brilliant. I think they took a gamble with Ukraine, and now the gamble has blown up. And at some point, you have to cut your losses. That's what I think.
Well, that's fine if that's what you think,
I mean,
but
it seems
it's
to be
just like
reality. I mean, you're seeing it with the EU, with the protests. You're seeing it here. I mean, that's
prodigal.
what the reality is showing now, 2 years later. Now, is that not what we're seeing?
Yeah, reality is your opinion. Yeah, that's correct, prodigal. That's how I see it. There's no differentiation between your mind
No,
and the
you're right.
world
Europe,
outside it.
and the U.S. in general are
It's like
gung ho on
Descartes.
both
Spino,
sides.
It's like
You don't
Spinoza.
have the
prodigal. Yeah,
Republicans
like
overwhelmingly against the war
right.
in
We
Ukraine,
live in a
and you don't have Democrats
Spinozian
What?
overwhelmingly against the war in Gaza.
universe
There's
in
clearly
which whatever
sentiment, and there's
prodigal
polling, and there's
thinks
data that shows
is
this.
in
This has
fact the
been trickling
material
downward
world.
for some time. I mean, they've done
It's
data.
oneness,
Correct.
total oneness with Prodigal.
Yeah, it's monism on like a new higher level of monism. Yeah. We are in fact inside your mind at the moment.
That's right. The
Correct.
I
Alfred
mean, my
White.
positions have been logically consistent for like 3 years. You're the one flip flopping. I'm Biden. I'm Trump. This and that. I mean, I just want logical consistency from Blue and on.
Okay.
Prodigal. That's my mutual.
As I was saying, Trump doesn't have a coherent policy. So, like I also agree that there is a lot of anti-Ukraine, even pro-Russia sentiment in the Republicans. There's a lot of hyper pro-Israel sentiment. I saw a interview with Trump on Fox, and he basically did not lay out any sort of policy. He was just like, everyone knows that, frankly, none of
Yeah,
this would
why
have
touch that
happened under
hot
my
potato? What do you
administration.
have to gain politically in a
And
race? You have nothing. If this is hurting your opponent,
because
yeah.
prodigal, I think the world would like to know what
Well,
your
then you
actual
have shit
policy is.
strategy.
Secondly, I don't.
That was fun.
Secondly, he is like he never said that he said the problem
He said this
we
would have
have. What
never.
did he
Said this
say?
would have never happened under my watch. This only happened.
But he also said like we need to finish the problem.
Yeah,
or
he said we
something
needed to finish.
crazy.
We needed to finish the problem, referring to Hamas, obviously.
But did you guys see the Lex
Right. Okay.
Friedman
So that's
interview with Jared Kushner? And Kushner laid out this position. He said Trump would be the anti-war candidate, and that he has no interest in scaling it up. Did you guys see that in the podcast?
well. This is, I guess, what I was going to get to. Like, first off, the Republican base will do whatever Trump wants. Trump could, in fact, shoot someone on Madison Avenue, and they would make excuses for him. And it's like if he's going to swing this against Biden, you have to get polemical. You have to show that like there's another way. It's not all. There's a ton of Israel support in the United States. Like I'm not delusional. But the fact is, those evangelicals, like he's got them in his back pocket. And so it would be interesting from a purely strategic level to start talking ceasefire and start criticizing Israel as opposed to being a Fox News Zionist. Now, he has not done that thus far. We just kind of I think a lot of the right wing just like assumes that he's a secret anti-Zionist or something. I don't assume that. But that would be an interesting strategic move. And to go back to what I was saying like 20 minutes ago, that is what I think Kamala Harris is actually pulling.
Yeah, she is
I think it's a
definitely doing
light
that.
little.
She's definitely appealing to that base.
It's a little bit. It's like a feint or like a little bit of a tactical change where her ship is headed in a slightly different direction. And I think that would be successful. That'd be a good move, tactically speaking, on Trump's part. But again, will he do that knowing that the GOP establishment, most GOP yahoos are, waiting for the end times and the coming of the Messiah and so on. So it would be hard for him to do that, but it actually would be strategically successful for
Yeah, I
him to.
I
disagree.
was thinking
You
about
have
it, though,
nothing to
Richard.
gain. Yeah, how do you have anything to gain? There's crossover on both wars between all parties. Other than saying you want peace, the only thing that's been working clearly is hitting Biden on the economy, hitting him on the border.
Well, saying you want peace is a vague
That's
platitude.
fine.
I mean, I guess if you just want to
You have
say
more
vague
trust in the
platitudes.
masses than me. That's enough. That's a different message than Washington. Washington is we're going to fund you.
I don't have more
We're
trust
going.
in the
But
masses
my
than you
point
do. You're a populist party.
is they said we're going to fund this until it's over, basically for both conflicts. And just saying you want peace is a complete, at least, departure from that monolith in D.C. and from the war party. Right?
Again, the shit sandwich is going to be Donald Trump has made extremely bold. I mean, they've been vague and non-committal, but they've been bold and aggressive statements against NATO. Like he's going to encourage Russia to attack NATO countries if they don't pay up and so
But
on. So I mean,
The
he
military
does
threat
go
is on
there.
their continent, right? Correct.
so there's two counterpoints, I guess.
Well,
One is like the way the Arab, world sees it, because he went really far, like in giving Jerusalem to Israel, and and then Pompeo the same, like almost dismissing the idea that settlements are illegal, stuff like that. Okay, but at the same time, the anecdotal experience of Trump, people know that he hated Netanyahu. You know the story, right? Because Netanyahu gave him a tape and it was
yes.
a lie. And then he went and met Abbas, and there's a tape of Trump talking about Abbas, the PA president, the Palestinian Authority president, and saying the guy was like a father to me, and he was just very gentle and gentlemanly kind of thing. So like there's a kind of the sentiment that Trump will definitely be better than like anything can be better than the way it's played out now. But then you've got Pompeo, who I've always admired, honestly, but like on Israel, he's just crazy to the
Yeah,
right.
why?
Why?
Why
Why
would
do I
you
like
admire
Pompeo? I don't know.
Pompeo?
Because
Why would you
What
admire
admirable
Pompeo? He's
qualities does he
I
horrible.
don't know.
have
I don't
that I
have the
don't
views that people think I
understand?
do. But
What is
yeah, no.
so admiring about him?
Well, on Israel, nothing. Like but that's the problem.
She
But like
wants
he's gone
her
so far
views
to the
Well,
are
right.
then what else? What else
her
is
views
there?
is
No, there's so
she
much
wants
more.
to free Palestine so she
He's
can
just a
turn it
big
gay.
Christian
That's her
Zionist
view.
Say what? What? No,
She
no,
butterfly.
wants
what?
Palestine free and gay.
I want Palestine free.
He's a
Yeah, of course.
And
It's
gay.
just
You want it
he's
in
a
complete opposition to traditional Arab and religious culture. You want it, westernized to an extent, at least culturally.
don't put words
No,
in her
I
mouth,
know this
Rollo.
is true.
well, because when you
Um,
look at Pompeo, I don't know. I just liked a lot of the foreign policy under Trump was pretty good.
You like that he
When you were
wanted to
living.
poison
But that wasn't
Assange?
him,
That
right?
was a big plus for you that he wanted to poison the founder of WikiLeaks?
Um, I don't know that that's the case.
That is. They were actively discussing it. I mean, they decided against it eventually, but I'm pretty sure he probably wanted it.
I mean,
I'm kind of I'll give my like dark Spencer opinion on Julian Assange. Um, I'm just really tired of hearing all of this, like, save Assange, free Assange. Like, at the end of the day, he went after it. He risked more than I have. He risked a great deal, and he attempted to overthrow the American empire, demoralize it in some fundamental fashion. When you do that, you generally get killed. And so, like, it's almost the other thing about it, if he got killed, then he would be remembered for all of this, terror war era stuff that he leaked. Now, if he's free, he's going to be remembered for like Trump era shenanigans involving Mark Rich and like
You mean
Podesta's
Seth
email
Rich or
account.
which?
So it's all this just bullshit from that
oh, that makes
era.
so much sense.
So you're
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah. Because like I was in a newsroom when
so
the WikiLeaks came
he
out.
should just embrace death.
Bruh.
With-
Yeah, I don't
You're
understand. And one argument you argue for like the morally right position when there's clearly little like potential gain, and then in this instance, you're like, oh fuck him. Like the guy didn't do anything wrong. Like it even came out later, the tapes they released when he's like, I've redacted as much as I thought I needed to, but if you want to look it over, you could. Like that was their entire case that he leaked sensitive info, and he didn't. It was clearly not a Russian hack, right? There was no evidence of it at all, right? CrowdStrike's own depositions. I'm sure you've read them, Richard, say that there was no evidence of exfiltration of DNC servers. So the whole thing's bullshit.
I don't know
And to
because I
be
heard
honest with you,
I
Richard,
heard
are
the
you saying it's
opposite
he
years
was
Alex?
he
ago.
was the first one. It wasn't Alex Jones. It
I
was
heard the opposite.
PayPal and
Oh,
Amazon
wait.
who cut WikiLeaks servers and cut off their ability to get funding. I mean, the concerted effort to harm WikiLeaks, and nothing changed about him, right? We loved him when he was showing what the Iraq war was and showing what W was doing in Iraq. When Obama was doing the same shit and worse,
Okay.
and the neoliberals had the policy, they took over. So, I mean, I disagree. I think that, you know,
I love how I make a statement and then Prodigal like radically misrepresents it in some
you said
like
he should die. That's
complete
basically
like
it.
deformed like manner. What? No, that's not. I don't want to repeat myself. I just made my point. Like it's not fair when you deform what I say and I have to like repeat myself.
Well, when there's
You
a
know,
lot
it's
of
Yeah, I
ten-thirty
inaccuracies
didn't
in
get
here.
that
what
from
you
what you said
say.
either, Richard.
You know?
I didn't get that from what he said either. The thing is, like, the thing about Assange, I was in the Middle Eastern newsroom, and when it first came out, I was like, yeah, this is great. But then what we soon came to realize is it actually did put assets at risk, and I haven't heard that it hasn't had like. It's plausibly the case that it is involved, like Russia, and like it's. I don't think that it's not. So I'm really skeptical, and I don't think
No,
he's a good
he didn't
Yeah,
person.
put
I
assets on
agree
risk. There's the
with
phone call
Habiba.
there. You know who put assets at risk? Hillary Clinton with a private server that existed when all the CIA assets in China were wiped out. We never got the answer to that. I'm curious, what
Did he
happened.
actually hook up with Pamela Anderson? Is that real? Can we verify that?
I think so. No,
Yeah, exactly. Like the guy's lived the life. Like it's okay. Like
Yeah, he's cool. He's
you know what I
cool.
mean? Like yeah, he's totally
He has
cool.
a
And if he
wife and a
wants to
child now,
be
Richard. You have kids yourself. Would you want
With
to be
her?
around for your kids?
Prodigal, let's below the belt.
listen, the guy is not a normal person. He engaged
They
in like the
fabricated some
highest
Me Too
level.
bullshit. Like they came at him first. Everything
Who
they ended up
cares? Who
perfecting.
cares? Come
I
on.
mean, Ace. I mean, you care about like pop culture. I'm talking about somebody
Yeah,
who actually broke
I
fucking
do.
news.
yeah. Hey, shut the fuck up, man. You are annoying, honestly, man.
Kaiser.
You're
Why are you coming after
simping.
me, Kaiser?
Yeah, because you're simping for Richard Spencer, who is basically giving a.
Well,
Richard's a NATO
yeah,
shill.
that's correct.
Honestly,
That is
I will
correct.
call a
But
Kaiser,
spade
we
a
can't go
spade.
back to last night. That was too
Whoa.
intense. That was way
Kaiser's
too
actually
intense.
I
correct.
mean,
I
look,
can't. I actually can't argue
the
against that
thing
because
is,
it's
the same
exactly true.
people. I
But
mean, I don't give a shit about Assange whatsoever, but at least if there would be consistency, the whole crying about fucking Navalny, who's a fucking nobody, at the same time when Assange is in the prison in the UK, give me a break, man. Fuck the rest,
Oh
man.
my God, they're
Honestly,
nothing
And
to
he
do with each other,
Navalny was not a
Kaiser. Come
nobody.
Habiba,
on.
it's about the fucking
Well,
consistency here,
listen,
and he
man.
didn't even get a
opposition
hearing. The
leader.
Don't
UK.
give me, and Habiba, you're also a NATO shit. I know where you're coming
I
from.
know I am, but I'm
Yeah,
still
yeah,
like,
you are.
The
yes,
So,
okay.
I mean,
I'm
UK.
okay with that.
The
Hey,
UK
Kaiser, do you
Parliament.
not like NATO?
The UK court didn't even give him a
Kaiser
hearing
loves
to
NATO. He's had a
extradition
lifelong
appeal.
romance with NATO.
I'll tell you what, Assange has brought more attention to his plight than that retard who set himself on fire. What was his name?
Oh my
Bushy?
God.
Oh
Richard was
no.
crying about him like
Are
he
we
was
The
really
hero,
gonna go
fucking
there?
Prodigal. Come
Antifa
on, man.
communist.
Richard, you missed
The
it the other night. I was
tranny
saying that your
volunteer.
opinion on that was pretty,
Should we
yeah, it was
really
pretty
compare
interesting.
and contrast the moral equivalence of Aaron Bushnell and Julian Assange? The morality, rather.
I'm saying,
There's a
I'm
purity
saying that
about
Richard
Bushnell that you
thinks
get.
one's the hero and
They're
one's the
both
lowlife.
actors. Like I know Prodigal, you actually effectively or probably secretly support Zionism. So I mean, I know why you just convenient make these
Prodigal,
arguments
take
all the
it back.
time. That
I'm just
we
asking for
need to
logical
work.
consistency. I think that's
Oh,
been
we need
my mantra this
guy
entire
is so
space.
bad.
He
We need
didn't
to.
Logical
contradict
We
you,
just.
Richard.
consistency.
I'm not a supporter of Israel, but we just sort of have to deal with them because that will get rid of DEI or whatever. Or like Bushnell's a
Dude, you
retard.
cried
Whatever.
over one. You said
Look,
Assange should kill himself. I'm just saying, I want logic. To you,
I
one's a
did not
hero. We
say
should erect
that.
statues like George
I'm
Floyd.
saying
The other
when
one's a
you
lowlife.
go after Prodigal, I think you are literally incapable of understanding me, so I just don't want to talk to you.
well, Richard, do you like Snowden?
I mean that genuinely. I'm sorry. I don't like reiterating my positions constantly because you don't get them. That's the most charitable reading. Or you just like mischaracterize me at will. I
I
just
think they're
don't
like
like it.
pseudo intellectual bullshit arguments. You want my honest opinion? I believe most of them are. And you're not
That's fair
logically
enough.
consistent at
Then
all
let's
ever.
not talk,
You jump
Prodigal,
from like
because
position. I
I
respect people who say this shit and then I see them do it and like it makes sense. Like you I don't know what your value system is because it changes from subject to subject.
Maybe you're just iterative.
Prodigal,
People change.
Not subject to
Prodigal,
subject, maybe
can we
over
just
time.
not talk then? Because it's not productive for me to talk to you.
Wait, Kaiser. Okay, I have a question.
Well,
You said that Richard's a NATO shill. Do you not like NATO?
I mean, it's obvious
Oh my God, we did this last night. They did this last night.
Jonathan.
I mean, that's
I'm a
obvious.
proud NATO shill.
Yeah, obviously,
You-
and Richard's
well,
also.
yeah.
But Richard, I think Richard lives in Montana. I mean, it's quite a reclusive place. Not a lot of people. I mean, the average density is very low, and obviously that
and
leads
liberals are
to
coming into the state.
dreaming about some Napoleon stuff, like some new Napoleon will unite the continent for some whatever yada yada, which is obviously nonsense.
Yeah, sounds like great.
Richard, are you a Klaus Schwab fan like myself?
Oh yeah, Klaus Schwab. I love his work. He's awesome.
Do you like
I love his. I mean,
the
even more than his philosophy. I love his wardrobe.
Do you like those edits on the
Richard, are you an
timeline?
advocate of let them eat bugs?
Do you like that song?
That's all bullshit.
Well,
That's all
yeah.
bullshit.
Let's go it. By that, he just means lobster. Like, you have to understand. It's like, prawns and lobster butter cocktail sauce. That's what he means. You guys, he's just misunderstood. He's basically a snob.
Wait, Kaiser, why don't you like
I'm
NATO?
kind of shocked that Kaiser, you don't think that Navalny was like a hero, like even symbolically?
Habiba, stop
Oh
it!
my
Look,
I'm not joking.
Habiba,
I'm
wait
just
a second.
like
One
wilding out here.
second.
A second here. A second. Everyone, stay silent now. Habiba, look.
No, but what the hell,
Habiba,
Kaiser?
look, Habiba, the thing is, I respect
so
your
sorry.
intelligence. Please respect my intelligence. That's all I'm saying here. Okay? Let's move on.
Ouch. Okay.
Well, Richard, do you like Snowden?
No, I hate
Do you think that's like
Snowden.
a cowardly, like escaping your responsibilities as like a rebel?
I just think all of this like obsession with the national security state and like privacy is, for lack of a better word, gay. And I mean that kind of in both senses. Like, I don't know, like it's probably a bunch of perverts and actual criminals who fear this stuff. Their privacy. I mean, like, I don't care. I don't know. Like, the government can go look at what I'm up to. Like, I don't care. And I think they should be looking into dangerous threats and so on. So people who are obsessed with privacy, they almost always have something.
So you
to
don't
hide.
believe that you've seen the
And
politicization of like prosecutorial powers
but
and
Snowden, I
overregulation
don't
and
like
over
Snowden.
crimes?
Because he made it
Everybody
so
in this
boring.
space easily commits multiple misdemeanors a day. Like the overregulation.
Well, then why don't they just arrest
Because it's
you all
selective
the time?
prosecution. I mean, that's what the whole Trump thing was. They figured once they opened the books, they'd get him on something. Because everything's.
Well, then what are you worried about?
When you fall on the wrong side of these people. I mean, you saw it with what was that name? The McCluskeys. Was that in
Don't
St.
fall
Louis?
on the wrong side of them then.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how the world works. I mean, it's just all of this obsession, like you have some right to commit crimes or something. I mean, give me a break.
Prodigal, this is why he likes Joe Biden.
And,
That's literally what they're That's what they're
Snowden-
legislating in California. You don't fall on the wrong side. If you're a small business owner in a Democrat-run city, it's the truth. I don't know. Not everybody runs on trust funds. They have their own businesses. They built their own shit, and like insurance has deductibles. You become uninsurable, right? And you hear the same catchphrases on TV.
Again, as I've said, can we just not talk, because I do not find it productive speaking with you.
Well, did you like the Oliver Stone movie?
No, I never saw it. I don't like Snowden. I don't like Snowden as a person. I think his just gay libertarian philosophy is for the birds. He's just weird. He's a dweeb. And again, he flies to Russia. And I mean, yeah, fuck him. I mean, again, I have more respect for Assange because he kind of is like a wild anarchist who tried to take down the terror war state. But all I'm saying about Assange is that, like, if you're going to do something that bold, you are risking your life. And I think he would be more powerful as a martyr. So in a way, I'm kind of doing him a favor, or at least his legacy, so to speak. But all of this idea of like, it's like my same argument with Ashley Babbitt. When people out of one side of their mouth say that like the election was stolen and J6 was this amazing thing and she's a patriot taking on the government. And then out of the other side of the mouth, they'll say like, oh, it was a setup and, she didn't do nothing. And it's like, look, if she's going to be a martyr, you kind of have to like endorse it. you can't, you're like demeaning her in a way in death by claiming that this whole thing was a massive setup. It's more powerful if you say, like, we were attempting to overthrow the election, which they clearly were. So it's just like like with Julian Assange, like, he took on the empire. He did shit that was like clearly against the interest of the national security state, and he's a rebel, etc. I respect that without necessarily endorsing him. But then to like claim that he's a journalist or he did nothing wrong, I just find that ridiculous. You know?
But
Yeah, that makes.
was it
I agree with that.
justifiable? Was it
Yeah,
justifiable
this
in
makes no
the
sense at
photos?
all.
Can't
Crown
we?
a second ace, second Ruhe. It makes no
Sorry,
sense at all. So Richard, it was not only the Penta. He was
It
leaking
makes
so
perfect sense.
no, he was leaking so much stuff, Panama Papers, all the offshore account shenanigans, which every newspaper in the world, New York Times, Guardian, Spiegel, used them. They used it. So yes, it's not only the American stuff which was leaked. That's actually one of the minor issues. And everyone who is actually, let's say, against tax fraud and all the shenanigans should be thankful to Assange and the WikiLeaks platform.
He made it.
You clearly did not understand my
I
argument.
understand the argument, but Richard, maybe you're just projecting. Maybe you're talking.
Well, why
Maybe you're talking
that
about yourself. I mean, maybe you. I mean, you could have been a martyr, basically, and look now. Now you're a NATO shill. Very sad.
What is that?
I don't understand how you think that I'm going to be insulted by calling
It's
you
not. It was not meant as an insult. I'm not
But-
American. I don't insult. It was a matter of fact statement. Okay, I do not insult. I was just stating it. Maybe you're just projecting. Maybe if you just exchange names of Assange with Richard Spencer, maybe we come close to the truth here. Maybe it is actually what's going on here, psychologically speaking. I don't know. I'm not insulting you at all. I'm just stating.
Kaisa, you're not making sense.
I make
It
sense,
isn't the right
Habiba.
thing
Please
to be
stop it,
claiming.
You're
Habiba.
saying Richard
Let's,
would
No,
have
in a
been
good way,
Habiba,
in a good way,
Habiba, do we want to talk
In a
about
good way.
Armenian genocide? Armenian genocide did
No,
it
no,
exist?
in a good
I'm
way.
not.
Huh,
Like
Habiba?
I just
Do we
think
want to
I
talk
never-
about the Armenian genocide, Habiba?
Let's talk
Let's talk
do
about
it.
that one.
What?
Let's do it, Habiba.
I
Come
never
on.
Let's do it. Let's do
opposed.
it.
I never opposed the U.S. government, nor have I ever opposed the national security state. So I'm very
you
different
were a
than
certain
Assad.
danger to the status quo. Come on. In 2016,
Fair enough.
17,
I
you
mean,
were a certain danger
Hungary
to the
felt
status quo.
differently, though. No, Richard. At one time, Hungary wasn't happy about that.
Well, that's Orban, the traitor.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, that I think actually demonstrated many interesting things about Viktor Orban.
But it also
But,
showed the weaponization
I don't know what to
implementation of
say.
the government. You didn't
Total
agree with
cuck.
the claims, but they were managed to use and weaponized against you. No.
What are we
Yeah, I
talking
mean,
about here, guys? In
I
terms of
don't.
Orban?
Well, if he's
I
being
got
arrested by
arrested and
Orban,
I spent a
kind of-
weekend in jail in Hungary back in 2014 or 15.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like,
Do you have the
it was
mugshot?
kind of cool. I mean, I'm not. I didn't get.
Richard befriended all the homies.
It
Yeah,
might be.
Richard, you befriended all the
Did you
homies.
join
Well, I
the
befriended a
SS.
bunch of weird Asians in prison who claimed to be innocent. I didn't believe them at the time.
What did
because you were
but,
racist, or
what did the Asians do?
Oh my
no,
god, I have
well,
to Google
I
you
was there.
properly.
I'm just kidding.
So I was in this detention center. So it was very low security. I mean, it was a real thing. Like, they didn't close the door of the prison, so but they were kind of watching us.
So
I
you
mean,
were
I
welcome
don't
to
know
leave?
it would have been difficult. No. I'm just saying, like, if you see those documentaries about like life behind bars with like hardened violent criminals, like, it was not that at all. And it was pretty laid back, to be honest, but it was prison. But anyway, I was there with these Asians, and they were like, I am so innocent. Like, they put someone, like, they opened up trunk at Buddha, and there is like pounds of cocaine in my car. Like, I did not put it there. And I was like, listen, man, all right, I'm not like gonna fucking prosecute you. Like, it's kind of cool that you're a drug runner. just like seriously, like, you had more cred as a drug runner, but now you're like an accidental person who was put in jail for 4 years or whatever. I was like, just kind of own it. It's kind of awesome, like, badass. And he was like, no, innocent. I was like, yeah, whatever. But then after I got out, people told me that does happen sometimes. Like, these poor Asians, like guys will break into their car and plant drugs and then like break into their car again after they cross the border or something. So maybe I was being unkind.
Did you make any
Wouldn't be a
friends, or
first.
was it just a brief?
Were they mean to you? Anyone?
Oh no. Well, I mean, the worst thing that happened is that they kept me up all night. So I wasn't really able to sleep, and they were like transporting me from various things. But once the Hungarian police figured out who I was, they started to like me because they were like more racist than I was. And so while I was in their like police custody, there were gypsies that were like, this was like at 4 a.m. It was crazy. And there was like this group of gypsies in the corner, and they all spoke like 10 words of broken English. And they're like, they stopped the car and they looked over, they're like, we run her over for you. I was like, oh my God. It's like, you don't have to do that, my bros. They thought it was kind of hilarious that like this political, dissident was in Hungary and I got arrested. But I mean, it's not fun. You spend like, you're seated in like a plastic chair for 2 hours while at like 2 a.m. and all this kind of stuff. And they figure out where they're going to put you. But, it's kind of cool. I mean, I'm not afraid of jail. I'm not, it was kind of an interesting experience. You meet new people.
Wait, so
You
did
just
Orban
basically
intervene, or
act
did he get
nice.
involved at all? Because like,
Yes, he
Yeah,
intervened. He
he
decided
ducked
I
out.
was not allowed to be there.
are you serious?
And then the best part was I was in a like dirty suit, and they marched me through the airport cuffed. And that was like the looks you got from the female persuasion. Yeah, I mean, that was awesome.
Did you feel
I
good
was
in
like,
that
can we
moment?
do this again? Oh my God. I was like, can we do this again? Like, let's go to it, But they just
Wait,
like
what? You
deported
enjoyed the
me.
notoriety?
Oh, totally. It was
Did you feel like Roger Moore?
Yeah, you should have said, "May I take a selfie?"
something like I don't know what I did. Yeah, like people like, and but then they threw me on a plane. So I was handcuffed, and then like before they closed the door of the plane, they unhandcuffed me, and then I was like, "Where are we going?" And they're like, "You're going to Paris." And I was like, "All right." I mean, it's kind of hilarious.
So you were the original Jan 6 prisoner. I mean, kind of ahead of the curve.
Exactly. But I wasn't as self-righteous as those losers. I wasn't being like, I'm here for
Fair enough.
I just love my country so much.
You got to teach them how to do it.
And I feel
But Orban
the
is really close
liberals are
to.
taking her from me. I was
God.
like, all right, this is fun.
That sounds awful.
Man
I love
of
the
the
life
people.
of being an international criminal.
This sounds terrible. Like also Orban is like really close to Netanyahu. Like that's how he's gotten.
Oh,
Yeah,
totally.
they're like best
I mean, I
buddies,
think
yeah.
that something like that might have had something to do with it, because one thing I noticed of the conservatives is that like they'll steal my ideas 10 years later and then they'll mangle them. So they're, all that stuff. Like I was the first one to try to go to Hungary and like do an awesome event that was, dissident politics and whatever. And then conservatives just like redo it, but do it in this like totally retarded fashion.
Wait, which year was it? You said 2014.
Yeah, I think it was 2014.
Okay,
Was the
October 2014.
Netanyahu was out there, like, and midwifing kind of this really close relationship between Israel and Hungary. And then he did this again recently. He introduced Orban to the heritage guys and like had him speak here and try and like he's had kind of a pernicious influence, I think.
Exactly. I mean, this is the kind of petty nationalism. They're pro-Russia. They're pro-Israel.
Yeah, that's not what's going on. Come on, Richard, you're smarter than
It is
this.
what's
Let
going
Bieber
on,
stop
Kaiser.
your.
That's
No,
exactly
Bieber,
what's
stop it.
going
It's
on.
no, Richard, it's
Kaiser, do you read the
nonsense.
Balkan
Look,
Insight?
How is Viktor
okay,
Orban
can I
not
speak myself?
pro-Russian
Look,
or Israel?
what he's doing is, look, man, look. If you would know the Hungarians, you would know they have no love, neither for Jews, neither for Russians, but they're pragmatic. Orban knows exactly the cards he has to play. And Bieber, stop it. Let's talk about
so you're
Erdogan.
disagreeing with me,
How
basically.
close is
You're disagreeing
Erdogan to Israel? The thing is, he's playing a Machiavellian game, and it's good for him.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
good for
he's
his
so
country.
brilliant, yes.
And
You're disagreeing with what I'm saying.
to say that an Hungarian nationalist has any love for Russia or for Israel is ridiculous.
Wait, what?
And this shows you know nothing,
Kaiser, you
Richard. You
think
really
Orban?
don't know
Wait,
Oh,
nothing.
I know
wait,
nothing,
Corbin.
Kaiser. Yes,
No, you don't
those
know.
are the two countries that you're
It's interesting that
leaning
you're
towards.
singling out
You just want to
Hungary.
defend some petty
No,
nationalist because that's what you are, Kaiser.
no.
Why
And you are
you're a
Lapa
global
from
citizen,
Montana,
Richard.
Richard.
You're a
You are
global.
fucking Lapa
admitted-
from
Whoa, hold
Texas.
up, hold up.
Why would you mute him? Why would you mute
I
him?
don't
I'm
give
so
a shit
confused.
for
You genuinely
this.
don't.
You
Blitz.
just agreed with what I just said, but apparently I
No,
don't
because we are
understand.
singling out Orban for obvious reason. Because he doesn't toe the line.
Well, it doesn't fucking matter what his reasoning
Why
is.
don't you
It's
call
the
out
reality
Erdogan?
is that he's pro-Russia.
Why don't you call out Erdogan?
Wait a second, Kaiser. This is
Because
really
because when it
strange,
comes to the
Kaiser.
grand scheme, he's still towing the party line.
Why do I need to
Come
call out
on.
Erdogan? I mean, what?
Kaiser,
I mean, look,
We're talking about Hungary.
Erdogan is one NATO leader who has actually, when it comes to Israel, a lot of leverage. When you see the
Kaiser.
business relationship between, Habiba,
Kaiser.
hold on. I know the business relationship between Turkey and Israel. So stop fooling me here, Habiba. Come on.
Okay,
They're
what are you
literally
talking
supplying
about?
food, weapons,
I don't
and
know.
oil to Israel, like
Guys,
through Azerbaijan.
first of all, Kaiser, when we're talking about Orban and Israel, the relationship's not only historic, there's some really detailed descriptions of what Netanyahu and Orban have done together. You know, it's not in our imagination that
I mean, but
relationship
you understand
exists.
where the history stems from, Habib. It's an apologist history over the Holocaust, basically. That's how.
I understand
Again,
that, but
Habiba,
Orban isn't the
he's
one
being
to.
pragmatic.
Thomas
Yeah, but
Orban is
Orban's
being
not the one to
pragmatic.
do
Stop
attachment with.
it. If
What
you
does
want
it
to,
matter? Like,
why
he's
does it matter?
pro-Israel.
Why do we speak
Why
about
are you
Orban?
defending
Hungary
him when
is a
you're
small
agreeing
country
with my
without
statement?
any leverage. Why do we talk about Hungary? Why not talk about
because
Turkey
they're
here?
Zionists.
Habiba, isn't it interesting?
because
Come on,
we're
Orban,
talking
Turkey has
about
leverage.
bristles at the
I
at the
want to talk about
sensitivity
Turkey
of
right now,
Why
Brussels.
would
Richard.
you defend
Let's talk about
Orban,
Turkey here.
Kaiser?
Come on,
Fine,
Please don't.
Kaiser?
let's
fine, Kaiser,
go.
but you're just changing the subject. I mean,
Yeah, no,
Wait.
but because it's very obvious what kind of game Habiba's
No, it's
playing
not
here. Come
obvious.
on.
Like I'm telling you, Orban is very.
Yes, it's
He's like
obvious.
such a he's like the anti-European. You know, he's not the kind of
he
guy.
is.
Yeah, he is for sure, man. Who are you to tell Habiba? You are not living in Europe. Are you living?
I'm not gonna say where
Austria
what
is very
residencies are and stuff like that.
Well,
do you really
I
think?
can say that he's anti-European.
No, Richard, you cannot say because you're not living here. If you would
Only
live
you
here,
can
you
He
would.
suppressed
Yes,
the
I can
Aryan
say it.
Spencer.
You will
In
say.
prison.
I will tell you one thing, Richard. Do you really think Orban
The German
stands
spirit
alone?
was
Do you
suppressed
really
that
think that? Hey, shut the
I'm
fuck up,
sorry.
man.
It was just
If you want the power machinations going on behind the scenes, is Austria is very close to Hungary. Bavaria actually is very closely monitoring what Orban is doing. Slovakia is always in the background here. It's not that Orban is alone. That's nonsense. He's just basically the canary. What's it
Who
called? The
said that?
canary bird who's
The
checking
canary in the
the
coal
temperature
mine,
here.
yeah.
Exactly.
Who said? Oh,
So
who
George
are
Come
you
on.
Monbiot,
And you
I
are
don't know if
calling
you
me
know
a petty
this.
nationalist. This is ridiculous.
Okay, so I don't know
I
if you
mean,
know
if
this.
you want
Yeah,
to
you
have your
are a petty
Napoleonic, if you want to have your Napoleonic, you go play video games, okay? But that's not the reality. Just saying, Richard. I'm sorry.
Reality is that the European Union exists, NATO exists. Okay, that is in fact the reality as we established last night.
Exactly.
You
That's
want
the
a
reality. Then we
Charlemagnean
can.
Germanic Catholic kingdom?
No,
Is that
I
what you
don't want.
want?
I want a European Union which is functional, and this European Union is not functional, whether you like it
Well,
or not.
okay, so just burn it down and create the Kaiser Reich. I mean,
Richard, come on, please.
Well,
This is below
Richard, they
you.
are
This is
Well, what?
beneath you. Come on.
They are
That is.
invading
I respect your
that's what you would
intelligence.
have to do.
That
I
is
mean,
beneath you, Richard. Come on.
Well, it might be better than the
That
green
is
global
beneath your
homo.
intellect.
I mean,
that's what you would
Kaiser.
have to do. I mean,
No, the thing is, okay, I don't have to do anything. You have seen with Brexit. I mean, what is your stance actually towards Brexit? I mean, back in the days, you have been, I think, a supporter of Brexit, but how would you evaluate it today?
No.
Okay, what's your evaluation of Brexit in general?
Fiercely opposed. I'm against it. I was against it at the time. I can prove that. I can prove that as well. I was probably the one notable right-wing figure who opposed Brexit. To give myself a little credit, to be honest.
Are you still against it, Richard?
I'm not. I'm against the nation state. I mean, I'm for a European empire that would include Britain. Yes.
But okay, but Richard, I mean, that's fair enough. Honestly, the thing, Habiba, the thing which I would actually agree with you here, but how can you be, let's say, an empire without own agency? It's
That's why I
come
wouldn't
on,
agree with
Richard.
it. Because like, who would
Do you want
you wouldn't
do you
want it
want a
run by
Robin
Germany
to
or
your
France.
Batman, or do you want
Like, you wouldn't.
Habiba? Come on, I'm talking now here.
Kaiser,
Richard,
can I just say
how
one thing,
does it
Kaiser?
work
One
out?
thing. Your mic
I
is
would
so
rather hear
loud that
Habiba.
like
She has
I can't hear everyone else. You know.
That's your problem.
Habiba has a very nice speaking voice.
So do you.
She's
Whereas
a globalist. He gets
Kaiser,
paid money.
he proves the what was it? Frederick's the Great comment of I speak French with my chambermaids and German to my horse. He
Richard,
said something like that.
wow, Richard.
What did he say? You actually?
Wow,
What was the
Richard.
actual quote?
So
What was
smart,
the
so
actual
smart.
Which great
quote?
empire?
You know
Kaiser,
who that
what
was?
the actual quote? Kaiser, I said
it was
that in a
actually
spirit
Karl
of
the Fifth, you
good-natured
moron.
friendship.
If you want
Kaiser, not
to
everyone's
make a
gonna
quote,
know
at least
Durante's
quote the
German
right person. It
aristocrat.
wasn't Frederick, it was Karl the Fifth. Charles the
Kaiser, can you
Fifth,
turn your
yes.
volume down a tiny bit? Tiny bit.
Kaiser, I made a mild joke. Don't call me a moron for like.
You called me that I'm a moron. Yeah, you did that. I'm sorry.
I didn't call you a moron.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Kaiser.
you did
No, he
that
didn't. He
basically
didn't,
with
Kaiser.
your backhanded in a very womanish way.
This is just an example of an issue. I told a mild joke.
You called me a petty nationalist.
Friendship.
You slandered me as a petty nationalist, which is a complete misrepresentation. And I was asking you,
what are you if not a petty?
We have to be careful, Richard.
Richard. I was asking you. Richard. I was asking you a clear question. Okay, let's create this European empire, but how can it work without own agency?
Kaiser, can you
how
turn your
can
volume
that
down
work?
a tiny
What
bit?
do you mean
just
by
a tiny bit, your volume. Just a tiny bit so I can hear everyone else.
Kicker.
What do you mean by that exactly, Kaiser? I don't.
Kicker.
Sorry.
What do you mean by agency? I don't understand the question exactly.
Agency means making our own decisions, whether someone on the other side of the Atlantic likes it or not.
Well, then
that means empire.
Yeah, but like, so what are you supporting? An empire or like national sovereignty?
This conversation's giving me a headache.
Rug the space. Kill the space monolith.
Because it's too educational, or